Well, hello and welcome to the Builder Dad Shop. I'm Builder Dad Dan, and today we're going to talk about the DeWALT 735 dust modifications I made. Today we're going to be walking through the DeWALT 735 dust modifications. Whether you printed it yourself or got it from us fully printed, we're going to take you through the assembly process, removing the dust shroud and things like that from the original machine and setting it up to where, if you want, you can cut your cover and have it fully assembled like we have here. Just a reminder, this all started off on a journey with version 1. Version 1 was really cool because it solved the problem. However, couldn't get to the front screw post. So we solved that with version 2. Now the only problem with version 2 was that there wasn't enough room here. So we only had about 1.5 inches of room from the front of the machine to where we could get our hands in there. And so it was kind of tight. Solved that with version 3. And here we have the Prusa i3 MK3S Plus printing part A. What you can see is that we've got plenty of room on the print bed. So therefore, most of your printers should be able to handle this print just fine if you choose to do it yourself. And here we have the fully printed unit ready for assembly. And looking at this now, you've got part C, part A, part B, the exhaust cover, and then the safety switch in 2 parts. All right, so let's begin assembly. Here we've got just part A, part B, and part C. We've got a little bit of CA glue. In this case here, we're using Gorilla Super Glue for this. All right, now let's take part A, part B, and part C and put them together. Okay, if you look at part A, you've got 2 glue lines on each side. Basically, what we've done is we've made channels to put the super glue in. Now, you only have to complete these steps if you've printed it yourself. So let's shake up the glue and get this together. So we're going to apply the glue right along the edge. And now if you've gotten this from us fully assembled, feel free to skip this section and go on to the next. But glue is being applied, and so even if you got this part from us, you can see lots of glue is being applied to ensure that we have a strong bond between part A and part B. Now beyond the glue, there is a notch there. So part A and part B will fit together nicely and lock in. Now here you want to make sure that it's perfectly flush and level. And you're going to go ahead and hold it together for roughly about 60 seconds to 2 minutes. So 1 minute to 2 minutes, hold it together. And what you're going to do is you'll notice that there'll be no separation when you're done. So I'm just manipulating it here for the camera, but normally I would just leave this on my bench and just push it together. All right, let's move on. So now we've got part A and part B together successfully. We're going to go ahead and apply part C. And if you look, there's 2 notches on the top. That way there is no front or back to part C. But those 2 notches will reference and hold it together nicely. So now we take the glue and we apply it to the top. Being very careful with that glue to ensure that we've got a nice even coating across the top. I always feel like a little bit extra glue never hurt anyone. All right, well, we're gonna keep going here. Watching me glue. I'm trying my best to get every piece of surface coated here because what the last thing I want is an air gap. Since this part modifies the dust collection, I want to make sure that I've got good solid application across the entire piece. That way I don't get any random air sucking through any holes that I didn't intend to have. All right, now it's time to take part C, using the notches for reference, and go ahead and apply those on. So taking careful to make sure I get it locked in just right, and then push it on down. And that notch, there we go, just perfect. Fits nice. And now at this point here, we've got it all looking great. The glue's on, and we could just let this sit like this, but I like putting a little bit of weight on it. So we're gonna go pick up some spare boards from my shop and throw those on top. All right, had 4 boards on top, and now this is totally glued up. Now I'll admit that I walked away for a good hour with this on there because I was hungry and wanted to get something to eat. So now it's all glued up. Strong. If you look, I'm manipulating it with my hands, trying to show you that it's great. All right, now it's time to disassemble the DW735. So we're going to put the cord out of the way and get the top off using the supplied tool there to unscrew the screws. We're going to go ahead and get all those off and spin them out. And we'll get the top off there shortly. All right, and then the final screw, and we'll get this top off. And there we go. Top's off. So let's take out one of these bolts. And so the reason we're going to take this out is that we're going to reuse this in the safety switch. So if you decide you don't want to cut into the top of the cover, you can go ahead and use one of these bolts to put that into the safety switch to go ahead and override that. All right, so let's put that bolt down there. We've got it stored away for safety. All right, now we're going to insert the tool into the pin on the adapter for the dust exhaust, because what we're going to do is we're going to override that with the exhaust plug. So we push that in, twist, and pull it off. All right, ease it off there. Good to go. Now, the next step is to go ahead and remove all 3 bolts so we can get the dust shroud out. So let's set that tool down, get these bolts off, and that way the dust shroud is removed. So we're going to take them one at a time and take them off. All right, let's speed this up and get those off. My fingers don't move that fast. The video is just in fast motion. All right, now it's time to remove the dust shroud. And we just simply pull that out. And once that's completely out, you can see in this case, I've got a Helix head in there, which means I've removed the straight knives and I've got a carbide cutter system in there. So now at this point, when I did this originally, I took this all off. There's a few things that you can do there to remove, like that one right there. There's one there, there's one underneath, and there's 3 of those clips total and 2 bolts that you take off. Once you get those off, you can get to the impeller. And once the impeller is off, you can go ahead and clean it nicely. I've left the impeller on mine. The reason for that is that the impeller is actually used to provide cooling air across the motor. So I went ahead and left that in, and I would say you should do the same. All right, so now we've got the exhaust cover. It's as simple as pushing it forward, pushing the pin in. So go ahead and push the pin in and push it forward and then twist into place. Once you twist it, you can see here, it locks the pins in and now we're set. All right, now we change the view again and it's time for the safety override switch. So it comes in 2 parts and it's got a reference on it. So if you look, one side's got a blade that's going to go into the switch and the other side has got a reference that will go into the hole on the safety override switch. So now I'm just going to go ahead and screw that on. The first time in, you're going to have to take the tool and screw it in because it's a little tight, but then it'll be threaded just right for every other time when you need to take it on and off. Give my hands there a little workout. Should play some Rocky music right here, I think. Getting stronger. All right, almost there. Almost there, almost there. Ah, it goes there perfectly. All right, now we go. Okay, so we take the switch, blade in, put it over that, put the extender bolt in, and screw it down. And so what this does is it will override the safety switch there for when the cover's off, since the cover is off in this case. And there we go. All right, now comes the time to install our dust boot. So we've got that there. It's got 1, 2, 3 holes covered nicely. You've got that extra inch there on the front. And so we've got 2.5 inches clearance there. And we're going to go ahead and put on the back 2 just for reference. That way it won't move at all on us. But it will sit there nicely. And we've got those 2 on. And now we're going to go ahead and put the front one on. The front one, even though I can get my hand in there nicely now, it's still nicer to use 2 hands. That's just the way it goes. All right, so we're going to get those on and screwed in really nicely there. And that one is almost tight. A little 2-handed action. And there we go. Just a little bit more. It's surprising how long those bolts are. All right, that one's tight. Finish it up in the back. And then we're going to have this thing ready to go. So now at this point here, once that last final one's on, it's just a matter of going ahead and hooking up your dust collection pipe. So in my case here, I've got a Rockler clamp there on the end, and I've got this hard pipe down, so I can actually just slide this on, tighten that down with my finger, and I'm good to go. All right, so at this point here, I'm ready to go ahead and start planing. I've got it all hooked up and good to go. All right, now while I'm good to go, some of you may have a Dust Right system. So this is the Rockler Dust Right Quick Connect. And so I used to use this in my shop pretty heavily back before I had all the hard piping in for all my tools. And so this is just an example of hooking that up, and you can see that the machine itself, the dust boot, none of those things really wiggle with that on. And so it's a really good strong connection. It's a really good strong part. That's why I like PETG. I don't print in PLA, though I'm sure PLA would be fine for this. I like PETG. It's a little bit stronger, and therefore I've got that smooth action. So here I can pull and pick this thing off and it barely moves. All right, in my last video, people asked me, why not just cut the top? So here I put a board down so that I can go ahead and safely cut and not hit my bench on accident. What we're going to do here is we're going to measure from the left-hand side, so facing the machine, left-hand side, and then the back. So measuring from the left-hand side, we're going to be 7 1/16 to hit the center line. Okay. And then measuring from the back, and I've used a green marker there, but measuring from the back, we're going to be 6 9/16. Of course, I had to drop my pen there, but we're going to do 6. All right, ready? 6 9/16. Okay. All right, put the tape measure away. And we're going to get our hole saw out. And what I'm going to end up doing here real quick is I'm going to take my drill bit set and I'm going to screw in a little, or not screw in, but drill in a pilot hole for this. That way I don't have to worry about my hole saw moving back and forth. What you're going to see in a second is it's actually moves a lot, but what we're going to do is we're going to drill that pilot hole there. And then that way I've got a nice place to reference for that center line hole on my hole saw. So now this is a 4 3/8 hole saw, so it's going to be a little bit oversized for my machine. What you can see is I'm just going to test fit it over the top there, and I've got plenty of extra room. So this is going to work out nice for me. And so the next step is going to be to hook it up to that, to hook it up to the drill, and go ahead and drill that in. This is the first time I've actually done this, obviously, because my top is not cut. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to let you watch this because there are a couple bloopers through here that I could just either cut out of the video or share with you the whole experience. So here, the first thing I'm going to try to do is go ahead and drill that. And so I'm finding the pilot hole and going ahead and trying to drill that out. But what you're going to find out is that the hole saw, if I put it forward, not reverse, the hole saw is going to go ahead and grab there for a second. Well, I've lost some hair on my head. Oof. I did not realize my bald spot was there. I guess that's why I wear a hat. Alright, well that's not working. So what am I going to do? Well, I've got all those holes in my bench for Festool or Bessie style clamps. I started with Festool and then I got Bessie clamps. So here I'm trying to get this up to speed, and what you're going to find out is I'm like, this isn't going to work right. And so I've got the pilot hole drilled and had got it a little bit in the way there. But what I'm going to end up doing now is I'm going to try it one more time. It's going to bite, not like it. And so I'm going to go walk away for a second, which is going to go grab my clamps off on the other side of my bench. They're hanging up on the wall itself. And so I'm going to go ahead and get those. Right now I'm actually adjusting the length of the drill bit on the hole saw. I'm doing that off camera. I should have done that on camera. But what I'm doing is I'm extending it out to the farthest piece that it goes to. That way, when I go ahead and I put that down, I'm going to have plenty of distance there. So my thought is, hey, if I can get this spinning fast enough when I go down there, it's going to be fine. Well, it didn't go fine, right? You saw it move there. And so now I'm trying to refigure this out a little bit in my head. And I guess this is when I go off screen. Yep. All right, now I'm going to go for the walk. All right, I'm going to go for the walk. I'm going to go pick up my clamps, and I'm going to come right back to this. And so the reason why I wanted to share this part with you is because it's not perfect. The goal here is to not ruin the cover in the process. And so I'm going to try to use two of these clamps. The first one there is my Festool one, but Bessie makes an exact same version of that. A little bit cheaper than Festool, actually. And so I'm looking for a place to mount this, and it's a little too far off compared to where my hole is, so it's not going to be a good mount there. So I'm going to try moving this to another hole. Okay, try to do it down there. Yeah, that's not going to work either. All right. Now, what I didn't realize is that front one was good enough. But we're going to try it again. And back there, it's a little too flimsy, so it doesn't like it there. And so there's really no good spot to put it. So I'm going to try to make something work. I got something working right there. It's good enough. All right, now let's try this again. So let's get that pilot hole centered where it wants to be. And let me get my head out of the way there. Unfortunately, I'm not minding the camera. I'm trying to mind the hole saw to make sure I get this right. And you can see it's binding there a little bit. And I'm just trying to get it to want to bite into that thing and also drill that hole. So clearly not perfect, not great. But now I got it spinning. And look at all that plastic just going away. Spin, 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 come on. And there it binds. Okay, so I'm going to back it up just a little bit, and I'm going to try to go forward again. And eventually, I back it up again. I'm going to try to come out of it pretty good. I'm going to work my way down there. Unfortunately, this is not an exact science. I don't have a really good way of doing this. I don't have a second cover to try this on to tell you a better way of doing it, but that's what worked for me. That's how I got it. So realistically, it's just the measurements, getting them right, getting it clamped down to the surface of your bench, and then going ahead and drilling that out. So when that's all done, I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of sandpaper to clean this up. Just testing it to make sure it fits just nice there. But I'm going to use some sandpaper to clean up those little burrs that came off and use my vacuum to clean all that up. So I'm going to go do that, and then we're going to get this in the machine. All right, I've got that all cleaned up. All the burrs are gone. I've removed the safety switch that I had in there, the override, and I've taken the bolt back out of that and put it back in my cover. So now it's time for the fit. And here we go. This is the first time doing it, and oh, it fits perfect. So that oversizing the hole worked out great. I have a 1/4 inch clearance on both sides, so plenty of room there. So realistically, if you're going with a hole saw to do this, 4 inches plus. So 4 3/4 was, or 4 3/8 was a little bit too much. Maybe 4 1/8, if you can get a hole saw at that size, would be perfect. But what I found out is it really doesn't matter. It's going to give me the cover back on now, and it's gonna suppress the noise. So when I had the cover off, it was a little loud, but now with the cover on, it sounded pretty good. So let's get this all screwed on, and we're gonna mount that hose on top. And this is why I left that piece long. So whether you print this and don't put the cover on, or you put the cover on, the reason I left it long like that was that so now I can get it out of there. And you can see the Dust Right fits on just perfect. The hose goes on top of there, and everything is good. So now I grabbed my screwdriver. We're going to test fit this just so you can see what it's like. So again, showing you that you can pull on this and it's not going to come off the machine. It's not going to break. And gave it a little handhold there because it didn't want to go. But there we go. Now on and off, on and off, on and off. Good to go. So now for me, I'm going to take this off completely, and I'm going to go back to the way I would have this configured. So the Dust Right's going to come off, and I'm going to go ahead and put my pipe, or my flex pipe, right to it. So I've got an overhead dust collection system. I run a 4-inch pipe back to my 6-inch branch. My 6-inch branch plugs into my Harvey G700 dust processor. So for me, it's just a matter of getting that on, and then twisting on that nice little Rockler clamp I have there. Makes it really easy. So for me, coming off this cover is going to be no big problem for me. That little twist key thing like that from Rockler worked out really great for me. Love it. Recommend it. I've got it on actually all my tools. That way I can easily pull stuff off. Okay. Now we're going to take a 3/4 inch piece of walnut. You can see I've got my thickness gauge there that I printed. I made this. I like it a lot. It's got the references on it, but I've got my 3-inch or my 3/4 inch piece of walnut. I'm going to go ahead and turn the machine on and get it going. So I'm going to unmute the sound so you can listen to the machine run. Now I don't know if you can see it, but the dust is just flying up through that hole now, and it's looking great. Now I'm using my Wixley gauge there to read out, and I'm taking off 3/100ths of an inch with each pass. As you can see, that dust there just flying on out. So we're going to shut the machine down and change the angle for you. Alright, so now we're going to look from underneath and watch the board slide on through. So machine back on, and let's go for it. Alright, well thank you for joining me on this journey as I modified the DeWALT DW735 planer. I've made these modifications. I love them. It's working out well with my dust collection system. So thank you for joining me on this journey as I walked you through the steps to assemble it, whether you bought the digital download, you printed it yourself, or fully assembled. You can skip all that section and you watched it through. So now it's all ready to go for me. I'm gonna get back to work, but just to show off some other things, a future video will be covering things like the planer thickness gauge, various fences and feather boards that I have in the shop that I 3D printed, jigs. This is a hinge jig for a door. And then things that just make sense. Dogs, sanding sticks. I got this off somebody else on printables. Same with this here. Even in behind me, you can see that it's holding up my Festool hose. I've got a bunch of them around the shop. So 3D printing really works out for me in my shop. I love it. It's something that I got into really heavily, and now I'm going to share that with you, whether it's a premium model like this or something that I put up on the shared printable site for free download. So join me as we continue through this and look forward to future videos. So till next time, later and goodbye.
Builder Dad! What?
Nothing.
I did that last video.
I saw that last video.
Ta-da.
It was a good video.